Hello, my name is Jess. Welcome to my channel. Okay, so typically I am a romance reader. That is my favorite aspect of books. I love reading a good romance, but also in other aspects of my life, I love true crime. I love true crime podcasts. I love true crime documentaries, but I'm really not a big thriller reader, and I feel like that doesn't make any sense. So in this vlog, I am going to read 5 popular thrillers that sound interesting to me, and I am going to see if I can find anything that satiates my hunger for true crime. So the first thriller I'm going to check out is The Woman in the Window by A.J. Finn, and this follows a woman who is kind of recluse and doesn't usually leave her New York City apartment, but then a new family who is seemingly perfect moves in next door, and she sees something that she probably shouldn't. And everything kind of starts to spiral out of control, and it's unclear what is real and what is not. It sounds like the classic kind of woman under the influence, unreliable narrator type of thriller. The description sounds really intriguing, and it's gotten high ratings from both my mom and other people that I trust, so I'm excited to check this one out. Next, I'm going to read The Final Girls by Riley Sager. Riley Sager is a really popular thriller author here on YouTube. I know Books and Lala talks about him a lot. This book follows Quincy, who 10 years ago was a college student who went on this trip and was the only one of her 5 friends to return, as she was the only survivor of this horror movie-like massacre. After this incident, she becomes part of this club known as the Final Girls, who are all survivors of these horrific incidents, and they are all kind of getting their lives back together when one of the Final Girls ends up dead. And so now all of Quincy's past memories are coming back to light, and she's got to figure out how to stay alive, I believe. So this one sounds really exciting. I'm not sure if this is the best Riley Sager to start with, but I think it sounds pretty good, and I'm excited to see if it lives up to the hype. I also wanted to read a Paula Hawkins. Paula Hawkins is the author of The Girl on the Train, which is like one of the most popular thrillers out there, kind of started this ball rolling of like a lot of thrillers being published. But I think her other book, Into the Water, sounds more interesting to me, so I think I'm gonna read that one instead. And so in this one, a single mother turns up dead in this river that goes through this town, and earlier in the summer, a teenage girl actually was found the same way, and I think there's kind of a history of women ending up dead in this river, and so I think the daughter of the single mother who has died is going to kind of try and figure out what's going on. The next book I'm going to check out is In a Dark, Dark Wood by Ruth Ware. Ruth Ware is another popular thriller author here on BookTube. I'm not sure if this is the best one of hers to start with, but it's the one I'm starting with because it was available from the library. So in this book, Nora hasn't seen her friend Claire in years, not since Nora left her high school and never returned. And then out of the blue, Nora receives an invitation to Claire's bachelorette party, and Nora is excited, kind of thinks that this is a good time to patch up some of her mistakes from the past, but nothing really goes to plan. Actually, something goes very, very wrong. The description is very sparse. I really have no idea like what's going to go on. So I am excited to check this one out and see if Ruth Ware lives up to the hype. And finally, I am going to read My Lovely Wife by Samantha Downing. This is the story of a husband and wife whose relationship has kind of gone a bit stale, so to spice things up, she starts murdering people. I don't really know much else than that. I don't really need to. It sounds really freaking cool, so we'll see if it's any good. But yeah, let's just get reading. Okay, so I have started my first book, and that is In a Dark, Dark Wood by Ruth Ware. I am about 50% into this book, and so far I am really, really enjoying it. This is definitely one of the most engaging and exciting thrillers that I have read, maybe ever. To me, it's kind of reading almost as a horror novel, because all of the characters are in this like cabin in the woods. It's really mysterious, and there's like footprints outside that don't belong to any of them, and everybody's like acting a little bit crazy, and you're like, what the heck is going to happen? It's very unsettling to me. I like had to stop reading it last night when it got dark and my parents went to bed, because I was like, I can't read this by myself. But like, that's a good thing. That's how I wanted to feel like reading a thriller. I want to be on the edge of my seat and freaked out and a little like, what the heck's going on? So I definitely would say I am really enjoying it so far, and I cannot wait to finish it. I'm going to try and finish it tonight, and I will keep you guys posted on what I think of it. So I did end up finishing In a Dark, Dark Wood by Ruth Ware. I ended up rating this 3.5 out of 5 stars. This definitely wasn't quite what I was looking for in a mystery thriller still. I really liked the first half, how it was set in the woods, and it was really atmospheric and kind of creepy and almost read like a horror movie, especially when they were playing with the Ouija board and like the friend's kind of crazy and like obsessed with the other friend. Like all those aspects definitely were interesting to me, and I enjoyed reading them. But then like as we get into the second half of the book, our main character is not in the thick of the action anymore. The thick of the action is in the past, and she's in the hospital like recovering from everything for like a good chunk of the second half of the book, and honestly it got really slow and boring for me. I definitely like wanted to know what had happened. I guess the whole story is written in a flashback. Like she's in the hospital the whole time technically, but the hospital chapters are really short and snappy of her like recovering and like remembering things and like then flashing back to the forest. But like the main thick of the action takes place when they're in this cabin in the woods. When she tells all the story like up to the very end, we're only like halfway through the book, and then she just spends a lot of this time like waffling about in the hospital talking to detectives and cops and like realizing she's a suspect and la 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 la. And it just got really boring and not very exciting. I wished that Ruth Ware had kept the whole story like in the cabin in the woods pretty much, and like just at the very end did the hospital bits. And like the last chapter was really exciting and the turn was really interesting. Like I liked how it wrapped up in the conclusion and all that stuff. The main like murder mystery plot wrapped up in the end. It was still an open-ended ending, where is she gonna end up kind of thing, which I kind of appreciated because I wanted something like unsettling. I don't mind unfinished conclusions. I was kind of glad that the murder mystery wrapped up and you figured out who did it. Overall, I did enjoy it. It's not becoming a new favorite. It didn't really convince me that the thriller genre is for me. Got 4 more books though, willing to keep giving it a try. I really still am looking for something with more of a true crime feel, I think. I think once I find what that niche is, then I'll start to really enjoy these a little bit more. But I'm gonna keep reading these popular ones and see what happens. On to the next one. So I started listening to Into the Water by Paula Hawkins today, and I am actually really liking it so far. I'm maybe like a quarter of the way through so far. I was reading a lot of the reviews on Audible for the audiobook, and a lot of people said it was really confusing. There's a bunch of characters, but I think those people are just bad at listening to audiobooks because I am not confused. And I'm listening to it on 2 times speed, so I'm better than you. Anyway, the main premise of this book is that this lady winds up dead in this river. Some people think it's a suicide, some people think she slipped and it was an accident, some people think she might have been pushed. The spot where she like fell or pushed or etc. is this famous place in this town where like a lot of women have died, and she's actually the second one this year, and the first one was actually the best friend of her daughter. These 2 women have died in this river in some way, both knew each other. The woman who died, her sister, is kind of like, there's no way that this is an accident. I think she was like angering some people in the town, yada yada, because she was really interested in this location and all these women that died at this location, so it's really strange that she also ended up dead here. But her daughter, on the other hand, thinks that she killed herself, like she did it on purpose, she jumped. You're following a lot of other perspectives in the town too. Some of them definitely seem shady. Like there's this one kid whose mom doesn't have an alibi for the time that she wound up dead in the river, and he kind of wonders if she has something to do with it because she's acting really weird. She kind of seemed happy that she was dead, and then they get to the funeral and she's just like sobbing like uncontrollably. So he's like, what the heck is up with my mom? They're following a police officer as well. They're like, it just doesn't seem like this lady would have jumped. Like it just doesn't feel right. So they're trying to figure out what happened. So there's all these moving parts and all these different characters. So the sister of the woman who died really thinks that this lady's daughter had something to do with it, just in the way she's acting, the way she's so confident it was a suicide. And she keeps like saying that her daughter has like a monstrous glint in her eye, and plus like her best friend being dead too. It's like kind of strange. You're also following the perspective of the daughter though too, and she just doesn't seem like, I don't know, it's just really interesting. I'm really interested to see where it's going. This, I would say, has the strongest start out of the 3 that I have started so far, so hopefully I keep liking it. Okay, so I finished Into the Water by Paula Hawkins, and honestly I loved this book. I was so obsessed with it. It was so good. I definitely am going to rate this 5 stars. I'm pretty sure this is my first 5-star thriller ever, so I am so excited. This book was so good. I listened to the audiobook, which was really, really good. It is a full cast audiobook and everybody has English accents, so it was so fun to listen to. It was cool to have a full cast audiobook because there are so many characters in this book and you're following the story from so many different perspectives, so it really added layered and dynamic feel to the story that I really appreciated. Every viewpoint was really unique and different. You're just trying to figure out throughout the whole thing like why these 2 women ended up dead in this river, and it just was so interesting. It was so engaging. I liked all the different moving parts. It really kept it interesting up until the very end. And yeah, basically I really loved it, and I could not recommend this thriller enough, and I am so happy that there are thrillers out there that are for me and that I love. And so now that I know this, I can move forward and look for the elements that are in this story and other stories so that hopefully I can find more thrillers that I love. I am very excited that I found a 5-star thriller out of this experiment. So I'm gonna keep reading and I'll keep you updated. So I started reading the first couple chapters of The Final Girls by Riley Sager, and so far it is kind of weird. Our main character is a final girl, which means she was the last one standing after this like horror movie like plot happened. Like I believe she and her friends were in this cabin in the woods and she was the only one who got out alive. There are 3 other of these final girls. There's this one girl, her tragedy happened like 20 years prior, and she contacts the main character and is like, look, the same kind of tragedy happened to me. If you need somebody to talk to, like just reach out to me. And then there's another one who is like a recluse, and like the media calls them the final girls. And so this book starts out, she gets this phone call from this cop who was at the scene of her crime, and he calls her and he's like, oh, the original final girl, the one that she was kind of in contact with, ended up committing suicide. They're like meeting up to discuss this event and what it means. As she leaves, she like steals this girl's iPhone off the table at the coffee shop, and then she takes it home and like puts it in this locked drawer that she has in the kitchen where she's stolen a bunch of other stuff, all of it like reflective. And I feel like it's like some kind of a metaphor where she like needs these reflective objects to like see herself better. I don't know what the deal with that. So she's a little messed up in the head, obviously. So I'm like interested where that goes, and they've already set up that like she has blackouts and that kind of thing. So we're already like, I'm getting the feeling that she's gonna be an unreliable narrator. So I don't really have any idea where this is going. I'm only like 10% in, but just thought I would give you an update while I'm here. So yeah, this one is due at the library in the next like 4 days. So I am gonna try and power through it over the next couple days. I'll keep you updated. So I am now about 50% into Final Girls by Riley Sager, and so far I'm not liking it. In this book there's kind of 2 main storylines. So the main character, Quinn, she was involved in this massacre and was the only survivor back like 10 years ago when she was in college. These are referred to as the Pine Cottage murders, and she like hardly remembers anything at all that happened this night. So that's kind of an aspect of the mystery. There's flashbacks to this time that she spent at this cottage leading up to the massacre, trying to kind of figure out what happened and who did it. We still have no idea. And then also you're following her in her modern life. One of these final girls ends up dead. The second final girl, Sam, after this happens, comes to see our main character, Quinn. They just kind of start to form a connection based on the fact that their third has just died. I'm gonna put a spoiler sign up right now, and I'm gonna go a little bit deeper into stuff. I'm not gonna spoil anything major, but just in case you want to read this and want to go into the thriller like pretty blind. So there is kind of also a mystery going on in the present timeline, because we find out that they originally think that the first final girl committed suicide, but we find out that she was actually murdered. Now Sam and Quinn are kind of worried that the same might happen to them, but the book right now is making you think that Sam possibly was Lisa, who's the first final girl, killer. It's kind of setting her up to seem a little sketchy. I'm kind of wondering if she's even the second final girl at all, if maybe this is just some random person that's coming into their lives and like claiming to be this other final girl, because neither of them had ever met Sam. Sam had been like off the grid and not in any media, no pictures, so it's possible that they don't even know what she looks like. I mean, they have like a yearbook photo from when she was in high school, but the book is setting Sam up definitely to be sketchy. It seems like she has something to do with it, but at the same time I don't know if that's just the book trying to like lead you astray from what's actually going on, so that's also a possibility. I really don't have any idea. Sam's definitely a sketchy character, and she's kind of making Quinn like go off the edge. Like she's making her take too many Xanax, making her drink, and making her go out and shoplift, and encouraging her. They just went out to Central Park and like they're like attacking men in Central Park that abuse women. I don't know. It's kind of weird. I'm not really having a very good time reading it. There's not really that much intrigue. I just kind of feel like I'm just like reading and nothing's really happening. There's nothing really like keeping me on the edge of my seat at this point. I would like to know like what happened at Pine Cottage murders in the past. It just seems very strange that Quinn doesn't remember anything, and she's also kind of unstable and like sort of being set up to be an unreliable narrator. So who knows, maybe she did something weird in the cottages too, and I don't really know. It's okay. I'm definitely going to keep reading it and see what happens, but those are my thoughts so far. I probably will just update you when I finish it unless something crazy happens, but yeah. So I finished Final Girls by Riley Sager, and it was interesting to say the least. I did not really enjoy it. I think I'm going to go ahead and just give it 2 stars. It might be a good book for somebody else, but I mean, I rate based on enjoyment, and I did not enjoy this book. I'm going to talk about spoilers, so I'm going to put a spoiler warning up. First of all, I was right about Sam, what I talked about earlier. She was not who she said she was, and I was kind of mad at how obvious this twist was, because I think it was supposed to be a twist that she wasn't who she said she was, but I knew the whole time. And that was one of the biggest twists of the book. So I didn't like how predictable that was. I would have definitely preferred to be hit by something random out of left field than like to be proved right. And so in the end, Sam is definitely trying to make Quincy go over the edge, but she's doing this so that she can learn the truth about what happened at the Pine Cottage, because Quincy claims that she doesn't remember, and she really doesn't. I think she's repressed these memories, but in the end she does remember, and she realizes that it wasn't this guy Joe all along who had killed everybody, and it ends up that the girl pretending to be Sam was friends with Joe at this mental hospital, and she wanted to clear her name. That was her motive in all of the things she did. So like, that's fine, that made sense, I guess, but she was really freaking psychotic and really pushing Quincy for it to just be something like that. I think she probably thought that Quincy committed all of the murders and killed all of her friends, just snapped, and she was trying to get her to break and remember. It wasn't Quincy who did it all along anyway, even though the book kind of tries to make you doubt that as well, but I didn't really think she had done it. I was not surprised to learn that she didn't commit the murders. In the end, it turns out being Coop, who is this cop who befriended Quincy and like basically saved her the night of the Pine Cottage murders by shooting who she thought was the killer. They've kept in contact all along. I didn't like that twist at the end, because you spend the whole book like liking Coop and him being built up as like a good person, and he was like the only likable character in the whole book. So then to have the author turn around and make him the murderer, it just didn't ring very true, but I mean, whatever. So there's like a final standoff between Sam, Coop, and Quincy at the Pine Cottage where she remembers everything. He tries to kill Sam, but Quincy kills Coop. So Coop's dead. Then everything just kind of magically wraps up. Sam, or her real name's Tina, she goes to jail, which is fine. They're like trying to decide if they're gonna be friends. But my thing is that it doesn't go into Quincy remembering the truth and telling the truth, even though it says that she does. But my thing is, it's very strange that they just believe her right off the bat that Coop was the guy who murdered all of those people so long ago at Pine Cottage when he is conveniently dead. So she finally conveniently remembers, and the guy she's blaming it on is dead because she killed him. To me, if I was a cop, I'd be like, that sounds like a really fishy story. I'm not sure I believe you. But she's magically believed, and this other guy's name is cleared, and it's so stupid. I don't know. It just didn't, the ending didn't jive very well with me. It didn't make very much sense. It seemed too convenient and like too wrapped up without any explanation. And I really did not enjoy the reading process either, even though the end really definitely drew the book down. Throughout the whole thing, I felt like I was slogging through it. Frustrating to read because Sam was just tormenting Quincy the whole time, and Quincy was kind of like slowly losing her mind and ruining her life and wouldn't tell anybody what was happening. This thriller definitely wasn't my cup of tea. I'm not sure how to put into words what aspects of this I didn't like. I just really know I didn't enjoy the reading experience, and I didn't enjoy the endings. I didn't enjoy how predictable it was, and I just didn't really like the subject matter in general. I don't know, I guess Into the Water just felt more true crime to me. It felt more realistic and like something that would actually happen, whereas this was just kind of a little bit unhinged and crazy. I don't know, wasn't a huge fan, but that's alright. I still have one thriller that I enjoyed and 2 more left to read, so there is still hope for this experiment. Okay, so this morning I started reading The Woman in the Window by A.J. Finn. I'm listening to it on audio and I'm 50% of the way through right now, maybe a little bit over. I definitely am enjoying it so far. So it kind of follows this woman who, she's agoraphobic, so she is afraid of open spaces and can't leave her house and hasn't been able to for 10 months after she and her husband separated and she got into a terrible car accident with them. Instead of leaving her house, she spies on all of her neighbors and catalogs their actions through her windows. Something terrible happens and no one believes her because she is kind of unhinged in all these different medications and drinking. So we've got like the classic thriller trope, unreliable narrator. Not a ton necessarily has happened so far. We're just kind of learning about the main character's past. Her name is Anna, and about what's going on now. We're just kind of really starting to get into the grit of the mystery. I think there's something weird going on with one of her neighbors. I'm not really sure. It is very strange. I still am not sure whether I believe Anna's version of events or whether I believe that she is imagining things or whether she just has no idea what's actually going on. I'm not really sure. I definitely feel like I'm more on Anna's side, but I can't say for sure right now what I think is gonna happen. It definitely is really good. It's pretty engaging. I don't really have a lot to say about it so far. It's definitely not blowing me away. Like I want to know what happens, but I'm not 100% dying to keep listening. So I don't know, I'll probably finish it up tomorrow and we'll see what my final rating is. If I had to rate it right now, I think I probably would give it a 3.5 star. I definitely am enjoying it. There's nothing necessarily glaringly wrong with it, and it's written pretty well, and the characters are interesting. It doesn't have the same intrigue for me that Into the Water did by Paula Hawkins. So hopefully that turns around and I end up liking it more than I think I'm going to, but if not, we still have one more to read after this, so I will keep you posted. I can't be bothered to put on makeup right now, so this is what I look like. Sorry. So I finished The Woman in the Window by AJ Finn, and I was honestly kind of underwhelmed. So I think I'll probably settle on like a 3 out of 5 stars for this one. Since I've only read so few thrillers, it's hard for me to put into words like what about this I didn't like, because I don't really have a huge frame of reference to explain and compare. But for me, there was only like 1 out of 3 or 4 plot twists that I didn't guess in advance, and I didn't really like that. I think I liked Into the Water more because it kept me guessing until the very end. Like there were plot twists still happening in the very last chapter that I hadn't guessed yet, and I really enjoyed that. Whereas this one, they dropped the first hint like, I don't know, 20% of the book left, and I was like, oh, okay. Got it. And I guessed the other twist 50% of the way through the book. The one twist that I hadn't guessed wasn't really integral to the plot. It was just kind of something that made you doubt the main character's credibility even more. That was the only thing I didn't guess. And it was shocking, but like, since it didn't really have anything to do with the plot, it didn't really help me enjoy the book anymore. I don't know how to explain that. Overall, this was just disappointing. So this is more kind of like a psychological thriller, because you don't know if the main character is unhinged and imagining everything, or if what she says is happening is really happening. And I don't know that that's really what I want to read about in a thriller. I think I liked Into the Water because it was like a murder mystery. Like you're trying to figure out whether this woman committed suicide or whether she was murdered, and there was so many layers and nuances to that story, and I liked that it took place from a lot of different characters' perspectives. It kept it really interesting for me, whereas this one you're just following the one perspective, and it's basically the gist of the book is you're trying to figure out if you can trust this perspective of this woman. So overall, I was honestly pretty disappointed by this one. Didn't love it. I think I'm gonna go with 3 stars for the rating. Not a favorite. Did not help convince me that the thriller genre is for me. Okay, so last night I could not sleep to save my life. I literally laid in bed from like 9 p.m. till 4 a.m. wide freaking awake. So at least I was a little bit productive, and needless to say, I am now about 50% of the way into My Lovely Wife by Samantha Downing, and so far I am obsessed with this book. It is a wild ride, let me tell you. The main premise of the story is that there's this husband and wife. They have a little habit of murdering people, and going into this book I kind of thought it was like a sexual thing, and it's not really. It's more like something that like brings them together and makes them feel powerful and makes them reconnect in their marriage. And they didn't like start out purposefully doing it, but now they are purposefully doing it and like planning it, and now they're kind of trying to pin the disappearances on this serial killer that killed in this town previously, so as to like lead the police off their trail. So I'm gonna talk about spoilers here for a second. So the first person that this husband and wife ever killed was the wife's sister, and the husband actually killed her. And he killed her because he saw her as a threat to their family, because according to his wife, abused his wife growing up and tried to kill her. And so she ended up in a psych ward for like 15 years, and when she got out, she came back and tried to make contact with his wife / her sister. And so she like showed up at the house. His wife claims that she was just like in the house when she got home. They have this like altercation and he ends up murdering her. So that is the first person they murder. And with that whole storyline, I believe that his wife created this entire false narrative that she was abused by her sister when she was a kid. I think either she was the abuser or she just was creating this story for some reason because she just hated her sister. I don't really know, but I definitely think his wife is a lot more unhinged than he thinks she is. And now they've also started, like, because this serial killer that they're trying to blame their murders on, is his thing was like to keep the girls captive for a year and then they would be found dead. And so they have started keeping these girls captive, but it's his wife doing it and he doesn't know where they are. He doesn't know what she does with them. The first one that they did it with, he didn't even know that she was keeping her captive until the end when she was found. And the coroners were like, she's only been dead a week, and he thought she had been dead for over a year. So he's like, what in the world? But he's just he's starting to be like a little bit weirded out by it, especially because they do have 2 kids and the daughter is really getting freaked out by all the serial killer talk on the news, and she kind of had a mental break, and he's kind of starting to feel like guilty and anxious about everything a little bit. But then he does enjoy like the murder aspect of it and how it brings him closer to his wife, and he's like seems to be just as into it as her, but the book is only from his perspective. So I definitely think that there's something a little weird about the wife. I think that she probably is some kind of sociopath and like enjoys torturing these girls and is actually keeping them in like much worse conditions than he thinks she is. He doesn't really think about it very often because it freaks him out. But so that is where we are right now, and yeah, I'm just really enjoying this so far. It's very twisted and strange, but it's really well written and engaging, and I can't wait to see where it goes. Okay, so I just finished My Lovely Wife, and let me tell you that it was crazy. So I think I'm gonna end up giving this one 4 stars. I actually really enjoyed it. I was really entertained throughout. I did guess some of the plot twists throughout. As I mentioned, if you watched my little spoiler discussion before this, I predicted that the wife was actually like a little bit crazier than the husband thought she was, and I was correct. She actually was setting him up because she knew that he had slept with one of these women that they were thinking about killing. Didn't tell her, so he was cheating on her, and she found this out and was murdering not only the women that he knew about, but also others. He had never directly participated in any of the killings except for the original one, killing her sister. So in the end, she was setting him up. So she was planting his DNA and making it look like he had tortured all these girls for like ages and like brutally killed them and all of this stuff, and she was like trying to get him blamed for all of this, put in jail, etc., etc., to punish him for cheating on her, essentially, because just killing him wouldn't be enough, obviously. Which, like, go off, sis, but also she was crazy. She also, it like turned out, was like poisoning her own daughter because she just was like sociopathic and enjoyed hurting people. I was correct in that the whole time she was the perpetrator of the abuse on her sister, and she had just framed her sister. In the end, like everything comes to light, and he gets the kids, and he ends up killing her in the end. Well, it's kind of crazy because like her daughter actually stabbed her to protect her dad from her mom, and then like the husband finished the job. And I definitely think that like throughout the book they hint at the daughter having sociopathic tendencies like her mother, and I wish that was kind of explored more. I know that wasn't the focus of the book, but I kind of thought that was so interesting. If any of you have read this and picked up on that, like please let me know. I would love to discuss that aspect. Also, the epilogue was crazy. Like if you've read this book, please message me so we can talk about it. So in the end, it's like you are on his side and are like, yeah, the wife was crazy, like you did some messed up things as well, but you're the lesser of 2 evils here, and you actually have a conscience unlike her. But then at the end, in the epilogue, he's at this bar and he introduces himself to the girl next to him the same way he would introduce himself to all of these girls that they were screening to murder. So you're like, what, was he like in on this all along? Did he frame her? Like what is going on? So it's got this open-ended ending. I don't know, sometimes I think that those are kind of gimmicky, and I think it was kind of gimmicky here just to like spice it up and like make you wonder what was really happening in the end. But I mean, it worked. It was kind of cool at the same time. So overall, I am going to give this one a 4-star. I really enjoyed reading it. It was a fun, entertaining ride all the way, even though I did guess a lot of plot points, but that's okay because I was still entertained the whole time. But it still like wasn't the true crime-esque thriller that I'm kind of looking for. It was closer, but not quite there. This book was just so wildly entertaining that I like had to rate it high because I really enjoyed reading it. But so through this experiment, I have learned that the thriller genre, like everything else, is something that I'm just gonna have to keep sifting through and figuring out what elements I actually like and looking for books that have those elements to keep expanding my reading and finding what I actually enjoy. Of these 5 books that I read during this experiment, Into the Water by Paula Hawkins was definitely my favorite. I think that My Lovely Wife by Samantha Downing comes in second. I think Into the Water is really on its own pedestal here, but My Lovely Wife's definitely a fun read. I think my third pick would have to be In a Dark, Dark Wood by Ruth Ware, because I really liked the first half of that book. It was very entertaining. I really liked the flashback parts where they were actually in the cabin in the woods experiencing the thick of the plot. That first 50% of that book was really good and really freaked me out. The second half of the book kind of lost it and was kind of slow, so it definitely wasn't a favorite, but I did really have a decent time reading it for the most part. And then I think coming in a close fourth is The Woman in the Window by AJ Finn. This one got a very middle of the road 3-star for me. It was enjoyable in some aspects, but I don't think I like the unreliable main character trope that is so popular right now in the thriller genre. I enjoyed reading it, but it wasn't my favorite, and I don't think I will really seek out things that are similar to this in the future. And then last and certainly least is The Final Girls by Riley Sager. Overall, this was definitely my least favorite of the experiment. While some aspects were fun to read, for the most part, I didn't think it was as well written as the other picks in this video, and I also found it to be rather boring plot-wise. Not a ton happened, and I didn't like the twist at the end. So those are the 5 thriller books that I read this week. Overall, this was a really fun experiment, and I really enjoyed stepping out of my comfort zone a little bit, finding a new favorite, just kind of dipping my toes into the genre and kind of trying to figure out what I like about it and what I don't like about it. I definitely think that this experiment was a success, although I do not think the thriller genre has taken the throne for my favorite genre at all yet. I look forward to picking up more thrillers in the future. If you know of any that you think I might be interested in based on the stuff that I've said throughout this video that I liked and disliked, definitely leave them in the comments down below. I would love to know what you think I might like. And yeah, thank you so much for hanging out with me and watching this video. I really appreciate it. If you liked it, definitely subscribe and give me a thumbs up. I also love to talk to you guys, so leave me a comment. And that is it for today. Thanks again for being here, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.